I'm Mike Jang, and I'm here. Once I find my mouse, I'm here to share my experience with open sourcing our repository. With this talk, I want to help you move to open source. And for me, I'll explain in a moment, this is a personal journey. First, a couple of URLs. If you want to follow along, my slides are at slides.com/mike-1 slash open source and docs. I talk that out in the interests of accessibility. But don't worry, I won't do that anymore. The open source repo is at this URL. I'll share a few more URLs during this talk, and I'll have a whole list in my second to last slide or third to last, I forget. This conference takes pride in open source software, so I want to reveal the proprietary software that I'm using. Specifically, I'm doing this presentation on software at slides.com. It's built on the reveal.js framework, and the one thing I can say about it, besides the convenience, is that it's not Microsoft Office. And while we have now open sourced our doc repos, we retain an internal repository, a mirror, for private discussions and changes. So here's a bit on my personal journey. I've written a few books. You can check my credits on Amazon. I've been a Linux user since '99. Since I originally worked alone, I relied on the open source community for help. I made my living in the aughts, that's the first decade of the century, with the help of the open source community. I always tried to give back. I did my best to answer the questions of others when I could. And finally, in the past year, as a writer for Nginx, I can now give back for reals. My first distro was Red Hat 5.1. That's the original 5.1 released in '99, when Red Hat was, let's say, more open source than they are now. I wrote my books from home. I needed help. Where did I get it? Open source. A few years ago, I started a writing practice at a smaller startup. I started a fresh repository. All previous repos at this company, it was a heavy security company, were closed source. But starting from scratch, things were a little easier. I got some time on our lawyer's schedule. I was prepared to accept a regular commercial license. But the lawyer did his research. He knew my background. When we started our meeting, he actually said, "Mike, what about a Creative Commons license?" At that moment, I think I fell in love with him. Corporate lawyers are busy, but if they've spent any time in tech, they should know open source and they can be your ally. Pardon me. When I spoke at FOSSY last year, I shared some of the secrets of my job search. One of them was a GitLab repo with my portfolio and credentials. Now that I'm happily employed at Nginx and I've been there over a year, I'm ready to share. So let's look at that repo, if I can find the mouse, and make that public. My first mini demo. We have our visibility. We turn private into public. And if this works, the visibility should now be public. And if you are interested, you should now be able to see this repo on your own browsers. Here we go. I've done a couple of talks in my time. One thing I've learned is to interact during my talk. Being that we're just after lunch, well, I mean, at least for me, it's when I usually need the most caffeine. So let me ask, raise your hand if you're a writer. Oh, yay! There's some writers in this audience.
Yeah, I wrote my talk.
How about developers? Oh, good. Okay. Any product or other sorts of PMs? Oh, that's okay. Testers or QA? Well, they're important too. I mean, I find as a tech writer, I end up doing a lot of manual QA. Uh, have I missed anybody? Who else is here? If you care to share, it it's all right either way. I'm fortunate to be part of a company committed to open source. Or wait a second, I need to make sure my tabs are actually showing my slides. Silly me. Uh, you can read these promises on your own since you have the link to my slides. But here's the TLDR version. This is my interpretation. Once we make something open source, we ain't taking it back. But of course, as being part of a company that also sells products, some of our software is also proprietary. So I have a standard disclaimer from my company. Pretty straightforward. I won't read it to you. So with that in mind, I have a question for y'all. Can anyone name a company that's 100% open source?
JMP, maybe?
I'm not familiar with JMP.
They're one of the sponsors here.
Okay, great. I mean, I applaud them. But I've asked that as a leading question because I suggest that nobody is truly 100% open source. Why? Because at minimum, you don't want a company that reveals your usernames and passwords. You don't want a company that actually gives you their private keys. They have to protect something in order to keep going. Most companies go to great lengths to protect their customer info. While there are a few companies who develop quote unquote in public, I think most companies hide their public features until they're ready. So, and this sets the premise for the model for how we do our open source repository. And with that in mind, let's take a look at our readership. I can read this, but I'm pretty sure that in the back you might not be able to. But we have data for readership for all of our docs. By far, the leading doc is Nginx open source. So here are the numbers in perspective. This is just over the past quarter. But after I learned that, as of a year ago, our Nginx docs weren't open source. And I thought, oh my gosh. But fortunately, that's one reason why they hired me. And 2 months after I was hired, I was here at FOSSY last year, and I asked around for help. I'm thankful for all the ideas that people shared. Thank you, FOSSY. So now, time for some lessons learned. Here are my basic steps to open source. I'll go through them one at a time. Management support, of course, is essential, especially now in the current business and employment environment. But if your management happens to be on the fence or persuadable, there are a few things that you can do to convince them. At this time last year, a large portion of our content was closed. Since our doc repo was closed, we couldn't ask for help from our Nginx community, at least not in the normal ways that we in open source are used to. The time was ripe. While Nginx is now owned by a mostly closed source company, F5, our upper management, that's F5 under upper management, understands that to take full advantage of the possibilities with open source, they needed to support it. So we had the support. I remind you of the readership, and yes, this had an impact. And to be a good open source citizen, to help ourselves when we go into the community, it's important for us to be as open source as possible. Here are some factors that help companies choose to go open source. It helps if you're a market leader. It's easier to work with customers if They see your product and think, oh my gosh, if this product only had this feature, and they have the tools to help you with open source, they can contribute. They can become part of your community. You can have our world of open source contributors be part of your community. And once you have people contributing to your open source repos, you have a talent pipeline. Sort of like a minor league team ready to join your company when you need more talent. And speaking of a talent pipeline, I know a lot of us are or have been in the job search. If you're looking, last time I searched for F5 jobs, I saw 172 open positions. If you look and see a position where you think you can contribute, ping me. I might be able to help. It's great when you see people to contribute to open source out of the goodness of their hearts, or because they wanted to scratch that itch and share that solution. But real life in our society is frequently transactional. When you provide an opportunity to contribute to open source, you have to answer that question, what's in it for me? The answers are twofold. When a customer contributes a new feature, they get what they want from your product. When a user contributes, say, to your documentation repo, they get to build a portfolio. Even more, they get in line potentially for a new job. So, was anybody here at the Open Source Summit a few weeks ago? Okay. That makes at least two of us. At one of their keynotes, they actually revealed that the Linux Foundation hired an economist, Frank Nagel. He did a study on the value of open source. 8.8 trillion. I mean, mind-blowing number. He described how he came up with the number. He compared the use of Apache, that other web server, in 2013 with the licensing costs of Microsoft Internet Information Servers, and extrapolated. Of course, as I work for Nginx, I'm not going to share that detail. Next, docs in open source. One thing people neglect or give lip service to is documentation. I mean, I lose track of how many repos I see with README with the following words: just read the code. I see that and I think, oh my God, are they serious? Full disclosure, I'm a technical writer. I'm an advocate for docs. I'm a believer that docs can make or break your project. If you want to introduce your product to people new to your community, docs are an easy entry point. And good docs, they help with onboarding. Good docs, they help users, your customers, stay with your product. With the corporate commitment to open source, the question wasn't if we would go that way, but how. We were already open source many of our products. With our Kubernetes offerings, we have regular meetings with our community. It was time to take the next step. And time for me to make sure my mouth isn't too dry. With our commitment to open source, we had set up a template repository. It's available to the community under the Apache 2 license. You can use our template repository and use the license of your choice. We happen to use Apache 2 for a lot of our non-doc repos, but we ended up using BSD, spoiler for our documentation repo, and I'll explain that in a moment. Here's a view of our template repo. Since it's open source, you're welcome to fork it and use it for your own purposes. Every community needs a code of conduct, basic rules of the road. We use a standard from contributorcovenant.org. And with that, we needed rules of the road or guidance for our users and potential users. So we have a set of contributing guidelines, sort of an extended README. We have separate docs, separate READMEs, if you will, for how to create an issue, how to start a discussion, how to submit a pull request. We describe the life cycle of an issue. You have to remember that you'll probably have contributors out there who might not even know Git. Some might not know the software development life cycle. You need to be able to bring your community along with you. And at the end of this list, we warn the user that they'll need to quote-unquote sign a contributor license agreement. Short version, it protects the open source nature of our repository, at least according to our lawyers. Now for security and compliance. What are the challenges associated with security and compliance? I define them as personally identifying information, docs as code, and review standards. So let's talk about personally identifying information. First, there's the obvious bit, usernames and passwords. You don't want those in any sort of repository. But people make mistakes. When they write up docs, they'll test things. They'll put a username and password in their REST call or whatever. They'll copy and paste that to their pull request, and you think, oh my God, what are they doing? That's the last thing you want in your doc repos. There are actually tools and plugins that can help prevent you from even committing such, should I call them sins or whatever? In the same category are domains. There are a lot of creative people out there who say, okay, you can solve your problem by navigating to here'smysolution.com. But that doesn't work because somebody's registered even that domain name. Fortunately, people have thought about that. There's actually an RFC for that, 2606. There are unique IDs of all sorts, whether they be UUIDs or domains such as company.example.com. This is also personally identifying information of a sort, personal to the company. And finally, there are also auth tokens. Two types of auth tokens come to mind. One is OAuth 2. I've stared at so many OAuth 2 tokens, I know they all start with Y. You don't want any of that in your documentation. The other kind are base64 encoded tokens. You get a decoder, you take that token, you can find the username and password. I mean, it's so easy, even me as a tech writer can do it. So what is this docs as code thing anyways? I mean, I see several people identified themselves as writers. Does anybody here know what docs as code is? No volunteers, that's okay. But the short version of this is docs as code is Markdown or ASCII doc or RST or some other text-based format paired together with something known as a static site generator. At Nginx, we use an SSG, static site generator for short. I turned that around, known as Hugo. As you might guess from the name, it's written in Golang. So that's code that could be hacked. There are surprising ways to hack Markdown. We have to check for bad links and plugins as well. So all of these features require evaluation from a security team. they have to at least say, okay, it's a Docker repository, it has code in it, we've checked it, here's what you need to do, and it's either okay or not with them. Lots of readers use docs as a template of sorts. In other words, they'll read the doc, they see, oh, I've got this code sample. I can copy and paste it to my app. But you need to be careful with code samples because people do that copy paste action. So it becomes important that you check it for two reasons. Number one, you want a code sample that actually works when people copy and paste it. Number two, a bad code sample, something you copied from a malicious location, might include a code injection. Things you don't want. Of course, I've talked about PII, and there are links. There are lots of people out there who set up honeypots with slightly misspelled links. Now for that fun discussion, licensing. So who here likes the GPL? Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. There are a few people. I mean, you'd think at a conference like this, you'd have a lot more hands going up. But people who argue against the GPL say, we live in the real world, and that's okay too. When you select a license, you have to satisfy several different constituencies. If you're keeping a bingo card of corporate terms, these are stakeholders. The first one is pretty straightforward. The company lawyer has to buy into the license that you select, you collectively. If there's ever legal action, it's the lawyer who'll have to enforce your license. The engineering manager sets standards for approving any sort of contribution. And of course, even a lot of smaller companies have community managers who bring the community together with your engineers, with your writers, to help them work together. We have several major options suitable for the licensing of commercial content. Perhaps the most straightforward is Creative Commons, which is designed for content. If you prefer GNU licenses, and I'm not sure, with the response to GPL, I'm not sure many here do, the free documentation license is worth a look.
I think our arms are just heavy with food and
That's always possible. Apache 2.0 and BSD are pretty standard quote-unquote permissive software licenses, which I've found to be more popular in commercial software. But the most important part of this is this disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer, but you've got to talk these things through. Your company may already have a license policy, and we selected the BSD2 license because it's what we already use for Nginx open source software. A little bit more on this contributor license agreement thing. Users who contribute, if you don't have any sort of agreement, they can say, okay, I will contribute to your documentation, but I'll do it under my own copyright, or I'll do it under a GPL license or something else. And if you accept such contributions, the result can be messy. So we have a contributor license agreement to protect the open source in our software. When you read it, or if you do choose to read it, it says, okay, you'll put your Let me try that again. You'll make your contribution under the same license that we use. Now we need to prepare for contributors. With open source, you want a community. You want to make your repository and the instructions that surround it as welcoming as possible. Your community, done right, becomes part of your team. If you follow the software development lifecycle, the SDLC, trying to get that right, it's up to you to share how that works. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to contribute, and we do that with templates for our issues and our pull requests. We show our community, through our READMEs essentially, how to build our software. In this case, how to build our documentation. And seriously, we frequently work in our own silos. Everyone we work with might already know the SDLC, but our contributors might not. So with the SDLC, you may need to help contributors understand how it all fits together. Issues, pull requests, merge requests, maybe even sprints. To that end, in our open source repository, we've set up 5 different types of templates just for issues. And to help them, we share how we build our documentation. So, if nothing else, try to keep people interested, let's build our documentation repository. Just to illustrate, I've cloned our repo. And in one of our READMEs, I describe how you can build it. And right now I'm saying a little prayer, hoping this works. I know it takes a few seconds, so I'm feeling, even as an introvert, I'm feeling like I have to fill the time and chatter away.
I could ask a question.
Oh, sure.
You mentioned the malicious links and potentially malicious code in the code samples
Yes.
as kind of things that I'm assuming you're scanning for, or what are you, how are you preventing those?
Well, I mean, right now it's basically with manual reviews.
Okay, so review for.
Yeah, I mean, for critical, easily problematic stuff such as code samples, you want 2 reviewers to approve it. At least that's what our security people have told us.
And those are people from your company, not public.
Correct.
Yeah.
And look at that.
To that at this.
Yep.
So we are constantly looking for how to bring in external levels for those, but we're not there yet, because this is a brand new initiative. So the people who are most familiar with this initiative are the people who are inside of
Okay.
This is an answer from Dave McAllister, who has a ton more experience, number 1 in open source, number 2 with Nginx. So he knows a lot of the history.
I'm part of the community team that helped Docs put a lot of this together. And the template repository was out of my team.
In fact, when the moment we open sourced the repository, Dave got to push the button.
Yeah. That's my job.
Sorry, Dave. Let's see here.
It wasn't in the CLI? It wasn't like in it, or I guess it wasn't entered through CLI?
As you can see, it built properly. And we have our product documentation. So in our READMEs, we share our build commands, we share our make files. And yes, I just did my demo. Next in the process, you want to set up some good first issues for people. Especially with documentation, you're going to have a lot of potential contributors who might not know much about software. And you want good first issues that help people learn your software, in this case, learn Nginx. But done properly, documentation can be a gateway drug to make that happen. You fix a typo, you fix a grammatical error, you get rewarded for it. You think, oh my gosh, let's do a few more. And in our documentation repo, we have a whole series of good first issues. But a lot of you may want to go beyond documentation, and GitLab has more experience. They have something closer to an open development cycle, and they have a bunch of quote-unquote quick win issues. Some of them are docs related, some of them relate to standards for software, things that can be fixed. Now that you've made your list of good first issues and quick wins and checked it twice, shall we find out who's naughty or nice? Nah. It's time for the transition. What do you do to move from closed to open source? You have everybody's approvals. You've removed all PII. Your security people are reasonably happy. You have a license your lawyer can live with. You have some great first issues. Now what? There's more. We wanted to use the same content and the same list of commits from what was then our closed source repository. We wanted to keep the commit history. But we didn't want to share the PII and other sort of private information that's common in commit messages. And with that, I could have gone into the repo and reviewed the 2,500 commits that were made to it, but that might not have been practical. So we set up a process. We created a new repo, a fork. We broke the fork. We used a project, I need to make sure that I'm presenting the right thing. Sorry about that. There's a project called Git Filter Repo that rewrites commit messages. And then we archived the old repository so we could use it for research. We have a whole series of commands that were quote unquote easy enough that I managed to push these commands to our repository to anonymize our commits. This is what all our commits looked like from until the end of last year. The commits were anonymized, but we knew the dates, so we could correlate that with our archive repository in case we needed to know the history. This might be all a bit surprising for open source companies, but as you can see, we wanted to protect our PII as well as information that wasn't ready for release. So how do we protect our internal development? We have an internal mirror of our public repository. We set up issues and pull requests that were not ready to release. As we try to create new features, there are times that we don't want to share that info. Sometimes we have customer-specific discussions in the issues and the pull requests. And after working on a new feature, sometimes people decide, hey, we're not ready to release it. And if you shared those details in an open source way, you'll likely have disappointed customers. So, what are these lessons learned? Management support is essential. We could not have gotten these decisions without it. Docs are the gateway to open sourcing a product, along with the people who want to participate in the development of a product. Our template repository made life easier. Even docs have security issues, PII, usernames, and so on. The process of building docs requires software that might have security flaws. When our security team reviewed what we were going to do, they set standards for when we could have one reviewer approving and two reviewers approving. You can choose from a variety of open source licenses suitable for documentation. At least they're all used for documentation in one form or another, even though something like Apache or BSD may not be the first thing you think about for a doc repo. The best way to prepare for contributors is to treat them as members of your team. You need good first issues. You need quick win issues, things that motivate potential contributors. Finally, for the transition, masking commits help protect the PII of users and customers. Having a private repository allows you to work on ideas that aren't ready for public discussion. And with that, I'm going to have one last demo where I change the license on my professional repository, or my qualifications, my portfolio, if you will, from a personal copyright to Creative Commons. And it's merged. So once in a while, even I get to press a button.
Do you build aside from your personal portfolio? Do you use Hugo to build your personal portfolio static site as well?
Yes, I do. I'll diverge a bit, and this is my personal site, and let's see, where did I put it? I know I have a GitLab repo that's backing this, that's built on Hugo. I share that in my portfolio. The URL for that just doesn't come to mind at the moment. But that's a good question. And I almost answered it on the fly. But in any case, if you're interested in reviewing the work that I've done, potentially as using it as a roadmap for your own open sourcing process, here are the URLs. And I'll stop here for a moment in case somebody wants to take a picture. I don't know, sometimes that happens. And with that in mind, I have a request from some senior Nginx manager. And so I'll say, I work for Nginx, and my management has asked me to share a link to this survey. If you're part of the Nginx open source community, we'd love your input. And the survey ends just before the end of the conference. And with that, I went a little longer than I expected. I'm ready for some questions. Yes, sir.
Great talk. Really appreciate you giving it. I'm curious about contributions, particularly when
as writers, right, we have a style that we write in. We have technical documentation that reads a certain way. As you sort of grow that contributor base, how do you keep your writing style sort of level across the entire documentation code base?
It can be a complicated question. We actually had a hackathon at a conference called Write the Docs using this repository. So we took our good first issues, a bunch of contributors took those issues and started working with it, and then we got bunches of questions, and I thought, oh yeah, we have our style guide in the repository too, we can refer them to that. So it wasn't perfect, but we had guardrails.
Do you find you coach a lot during sort of the review process when new writers come into your sort of fold?
Oh, we coach each other a lot. Yes. Yes, in other words, we comment to each other a lot. Hey, Mike, this is in the style guide, you got that wrong. Oh, darn, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's an iterative process, number one. Number two, there are automated tools out there that we need to implement that can help. I don't know if you're familiar with Veil.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Maybe along similar lines, you talked about, you know, you're not sure what the expertise of the person reading the documentation is, so you might come across people that don't know what Git is, or, you know, the various technologies that are needed. How do you draw the line of, like, I'm gonna teach you what an operating system is?
Well,
How do you know how much to dive into in a documentation site that's very product specific?
GitHub and GitLab, they have some tools that make that job somewhat easier. We've been able to include links from our published documentation to, in this case, GitHub source pages. This is a sign in that I'm just subject to somebody who's not part of F5 would be immediately taken to the source of this.
We're just showing your last slide right now.
Oh, thank you. Let's see which, yeah. At the bottom of each of our pages, and this is getting more common across the software industry, we have options that make it less important to know Git. When I select edit this page, this opens up the source, and if I wanted to say just off the top of my head, if step by step wasn't supposed to have dashes, it actually does. I could commit changes and propose it and say, and tell people, just give a reason in your commit message. You propose the change, and during our hackathon, I showed this process to people, and sometimes with a little help, everybody there who didn't know Git was able to set up a pull request. So,
I mean, like you have parts of your documentation that's, I guess, like onboarding to try to welcome contributors, right?
yes.
So you're explaining how to contribute, and like how do you decide how much detail to go into about things that are not actually about Nginx, but like, you know, like you're trying to welcome contributors from a very diverse pool of people. You're trying to make people excited about whatever they want to contribute through. So like, how do you make it not too vague that it doesn't speak to anyone, but not too specific that you're excluding possible contributors? Like, how do you make those kinds of decisions when you're building that part of the website?
A lot of it comes in the good first issues. You can have good first issues that hopefully I can pull some of them. Let's see if I can find some of these close good first issues. The title for that issue is pretty straightforward. Anybody in technical writing knows, okay, there are big debates. Should we use sentence case? Should we use title case? If we say, okay, make sure that this document has all its titles in sentence case, that's something that a writer who doesn't know anything about Nginx can say, I can handle this. If it goes deeper, then you have to think about what to put in the description. Anything else?
All right, let's thank our speaker.